Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into a totally fascinating, honestly kind of magical culinary journey right into the heart of the KPK and Baluchistan regions. We're going to be talking about a beautifully simple, highly traditional method of cooking that basically defies everything we think we know about making a stew. Get ready because we are diving deep into the magic of authentic Peshawari and Quetta Rosh.
Think about it. How exactly do you make a beautifully tender, super brothy stew with absolutely zero water and zero cooking oil? It sounds like a complete paradox, right? Usually when you picture a rich, abundant broth, you imagine liters of water simmering away on a stove. But the dish we're looking at today flips that entire concept completely upside down. It really challenges our everyday cooking assumptions and teases this brilliant traditional cooking mystery.
Okay, let's dive into this tradition of Rosh. To really appreciate what's happening in the pot, we need to understand the deep cultural roots this phenomenal dish comes from. So we're looking at a traditional meat dish known as Rosh, though you'll also hear it called namkeen gosht. It hails specifically from Quetta and Peshawar, and it is celebrated for its extreme, almost unbelievable simplicity. It's a slow-cooked masterpiece known for a naturally salty flavor and meat that becomes so unbelievably tender you barely even need to chew it. Now, if you've had namkeen gosht before, you might be sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I already know this recipe. But hold on a second. Regular namkeen gosht is incredibly popular and prepared in a ton of different ways all across the country. But the authentic Quetta and Peshawar rosh we're focusing on today, it's a completely different ballgame. The true magic here relies purely on pure animal fat, a completely sealed pot, and cooking the meat entirely in its very own natural juices. Which brings us to the absolute golden rule of this entire process. If you want that authentic, melt-in-your-mouth flavor, you have to trust the golden rule. No water whatsoever. 0. That is literally your magic number for this recipe. You have to totally trust the process and withhold all liquids. That means 0 extra water poured in, 0 cooking oil, 0 ghee. I know, it feels incredibly counterintuitive when you're just staring at a dry pot of raw meat, but adding even a little water will completely ruin that traditional outcome we're chasing here.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is a delightfully blunt warning directly from our source. It literally says, cholesterol patients should stay away from this dish. It's kind of funny, but honestly, it hits the nail right on the head. Because you're using 0 water and 0 cooking oil, this whole process relies heavily on pure animal fat. Without that fat, the dish just won't work and you won't get that iconic flavor. So yeah, it is definitely a rich one. Okay, so how do we actually put this together without, just burning a dry pot of meat to a crisp? Let's explore the art of assembly, because it's a very meticulous, layer-by-layer process inside a traditional clay pot. The ingredient list is incredibly simple and honestly super light on spices. You've got a kilo of mutton mixed thoroughly with a hefty tablespoon of salt. Then come the heavy hitters, pieces of animal fat and 1 really big bone. For aromatics, just toss in some ginger, large cuts of tomato, 1 whole onion, and whole garlic cloves. For a little kick, some green chilies and exactly 15 to 16 black peppercorns. Notice what's missing here. There are absolutely no complex spice blends. The salt and the meat's natural juices are doing all the heavy lifting. But you can't just throw it all in. It requires this very precise vertical construction. Step 1 is absolutely crucial. Lay down a solid base layer of animal fat. That fat sits at the bottom to protect the meat from the direct heat. Step 2, place that big bone right on top of the fat. It's going to slowly release all those deeply flavorful juices. Step 3 is layering in your salted mutton pieces with a few extra scraps of fat. And finally, step 4, top the whole thing off with your veggies, chilies, and peppercorns. Once you've got that perfect stack inside your clay pot, we have to lock it down. And I mean literally lock it down. You take regular flour dough and apply it all the way around the upper rim. When you press the lid down into that dough, it completely seals the environment. You're basically turning a humble clay pot into a natural pressure cooker. Absolutely 0 steam is getting out of there. Now that we're completely sealed up, the slow cooking phase begins. This is where the pot basically turns into a mystery box. Time and a very, very low flame are about to do all the work for us. Let's move to the timeline and see how this actually builds. Before you even touch the pot, at minute 0, you salt the meat and just let it rest. By the 30-minute mark, that salt is already drawing out the meat's natural moisture.
Once it's assembled and sealed, you hit it with medium heat for just about 5 minutes, just to warm up the clay. And then, the ultimate secret of Rosh. You drop that heat to a barely there flame, and you walk away for 2.5 hours. Low and slow is literally the only way this works. For those of you wondering how to actually pull this off in your own kitchen, your timing totally depends on your meat. Mutton breaks down fairly quickly, so that 2 to 2.5 hour window is the absolute sweet spot. But if you're using beef, which is naturally a lot tougher, you're going to need to stretch that out to 3 or 3.5 hours. And hey, while traditional rosh is cooked over hot coals for this crazy, unique flavor, our source confirms that using a regular modern stove on a super low flame works perfectly fine. All right, the time has passed. We've patiently waited for over 2 hours. The suspense is honestly pretty real at this point as we prepare to finally crack open this tightly sealed mystery box. The final reveal is here. But wait, before you just pry that lid open, safety first. You've got to release the pressure. Take a knife and carefully poke some holes into the hardened dough seal around the edges. You will instantly see all this incredibly hot, insanely flavorful steam vent outwards. Let it safely escape away from your face before you fully pull that lid off. So the crucial point to remember here comes right back to the number 1. When you finally open that pot, you're looking at a bubbling, rich broth. But remember, we didn't add a single drop of water. This entire beautiful stew was cooked using exactly one single source of liquid. The meat's very own natural juices drawn out by the salt and trapped inside by that flour seal. And the result is just perfect. The sensory experience is honestly off the charts. The mutton is cooked so flawlessly that it literally breaks apart if you just touch it with a spoon. And surrounding that melt-in-your-mouth meat is this unbelievably rich, naturally salty broth. And remember, you don't reduce or dry this broth out. It's the star of the show. You just ladle the whole shebang directly into a bowl and serve it right alongside some fresh, warm naan. So I'll leave you with this final thought for today's explainer. Knowing everything we just talked about, the heavy reliance on pure animal fat, the absolute strict zero water rule, and the serious patience required for that sealed clay pot, are you brave enough to trust the fat, skip the water, and actually try this ancient, beautifully simple slow cooking technique at home? It's a real test of culinary courage, but man, the magical result just might completely change the way you look at cooking forever. Thanks for joining me.